Hello and welcome to Chorleywood Parish Council's online wreath making workshop. Unfortunately, we can't be with you in person this year because of government restrictions. However, we provided this video for you so that you can make your own wreath at home in your own time. My name is Daniel, this is my colleague Brendan, and we're the Chorleywood Parish Council Rangers looking after Chorleywood Common. So, first things first, these are the tools that you'll be required to make your wreath. A pair of secateurs, some wire cutters, a pair of scissors and some floristry wire. If you don't have wire cutters, you should be able to cut through the wire with a pair of sharp scissors or some secateurs, but please be careful of your fingers. You'll also have in your pack a willow ring harvested from the common, your base filler material, which is this yew, some decorative foliage, in this case holly with berries and some laurel. We also have some embellishments in the form of pine cones, some cinnamon sticks, and then finally some ribbon in varying different colours.
Okay, so now we're going to show you how to apply the base layer onto your willow hoop. Now what we have here is some yew that we've taken from the common, and we're going to apply this. You can apply it however you like. I like to go for a slightly thicker coat around the hoop of your willow ring using the florist wire. Now the way I like to do this is to cut the length out using the snips here, and you just want to wrap over the base of the wire and then make sure you get it quite well fastened around before you simply just wrap it there to secure it to your hoop, and then fold it in and you can then snip it off there, keep it up tight. And then the idea will be to just keep going around, tucking it in bit by bit and wrapping it so that eventually your ring begins to fill out, and that should be, get a few more on and then I'm going to show you, and wrap it there. In there, just fold it round. Again, a lot of people like to sometimes make their hoops slightly thin. Some people like to make them very thick. This is completely how you want it and how you want it to be designed when it sits on your door or your mantle or anywhere you choose to put it. Then that is where we've got to thus far, but you want to keep going around the hoop until you essentially have a fall and you can't see the willow anymore, and then that's where you want to get to. And here's one we made earlier that has reached that standard, and once you get to this stage, if you want to make it a little bit more neat, we can take the scissors and maybe cut around it a bit there. And that will just neaten up the edges, or if you want to leave it a little bit more wild on the outside, then again, by all means, you can leave it a little bit more wild just on the outside. And that is how we apply our base layer. Some final comments on the yew will be that depending on how you want it done, you can lay the yew upside down and it will give it a slightly lighter effect. But also how you structure your yew can change how it will look. So if you go one way with the yew, then it gives a nice symmetrical effect, but if you then reverse it going the other way, you can get a bit more of a wilder look to it, and that will maybe fill it out a bit more for you. We always advise you to play around with the wreaths. There's no right or wrong way to do this, and just to be a bit artistic about it, I suppose would be the best one. We, as council, are kind of looking forward to seeing how everyone's wreaths turn out and how they're all different, so it'll be nice.
Okay, now that we have your willow ring covered in your base material, as Brendan has so well demonstrated, we are now going to add some more decorative foliage. So over here we have some holly and some laurel. On the common we harvest laurel quite regularly because laurel is a non-native invasive species. So we take a lot of effort to remove this from the common to ensure that other species have a chance to flourish. Similarly with holly, although native, can be quite dominant and can overshadow quite a lot of the undergrowth of the woodland. So we try and control this as much as we can on the common to create a more biodiverse habitat. So taking your holly, this one's got nice little berries on, this can add a real different structure to your wreath. So by placing the holly on in particular places, add a real dynamic to your wreath. In exactly the same way as the filler material, take your wire and wrap it round your willow ring and secure it as best you can to the base material. The trouble with holly is it is actually quite spiky, so you may decide that you want to wear some gloves for this element. That's it, and secure that on nice and tight. So as you can see here, we're wrapping the wire nice and tight and then twisting it until you get that firm lock. Now here I've left the wire quite long, and you may decide to leave this for later on when we add some of the other embellishments. Where your holly has extra side branches, it's often a good idea to trim these back so that you have one single stem, which makes it a lot easier to work with and to affix to your wreath. So we're going to try and mirror this one that I've applied to this side and have it going around here. Don't forget, you can always do some further trimming once the holly has been applied to the wreath. So we're going to again grab a nice big length of wire, snip it off there, start by attaching the base, and just flip it over. Fasten that nice and tight, again leaving any excess, but if you don't use you can always trim off later. So now you've got the two bases attached, you can then work out where you want to attach the upper portion of the decorative foliage to pull it in nicely to the structure of your wreath. Okay, so that's our holly with berries on, adding that extra bit of dynamic to your wreath. Next we're going to add the laurel. Now because the laurel is actually quite a large leaf, you probably don't want to have too much of this on your wreath because it may over-dominate the rest of the foliage that you've applied. But just a very simple small amount can have a real effect to your wreath. So we're going to apply this now, again using the same technique with a decent amount of floristry wire. So I think we're going to add this bit down here. And making sure it is nice and securely fastened. That's right. We'll pull it in just under the holly. Wrap that round and then tie off underneath. I'll flip it over so you can get a better look. Twisting that wire nice and firm. So you can already see how that starts to add different layers to your wreath. And as again, you can look, once the final bits are in place, you can trim back as as you desire. So now that we have our decorative foliage attached to the wreath, we can start to look at where we might like to take some extra leaves off if they're being too dominant. So here we can snip this one, take any discoloured or leaves that are showing signs of damage. And there we go.
Now that we've added our base layers and our holly and laurel to the wreath, it's now time to put on a little bit of je ne sais quoi. And we can do this by adding some pine cones and some cinnamon sticks. But also we can add these little bits of teasel here. These came off Chorleywood Common as well. They were harvested last week after we did these, and they're just down by the may bushes. Now, when handling teasel, we do advise you to be a bit careful because they are a little bit spiky. You can just see it on the stem there. So again, you might want to opt for gloves here. And there's many ways to tie it on. You can place them just on the edge there, maybe 1 or 2 or 3, and you can just tie them in again with the cable. Now, a lot of people I've seen, after they tie the teasel on, they actually like to put some ribbon on top, just to maybe add to it. And that can sometimes give quite a nice look, but we're going to go for some cinnamon sticks this time, because I'm biased. So, for cinnamon sticks, again, you can take it as many as you like, maybe 1, 2, if you just want 1 on there. I've gone for 3 cinnamon sticks, and I've tied a little base around there. Just 2 little whips, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread a bit of wire through that little bit, and I'm going to use that to tie them on to the wreath itself. And that should do it. And that will hold him in place there for me. Now, what else you might want to add is some pine cones. Now, you can do these in threes or you can do these singular. It's all up to you, but the best way I find to add the pine cone is to almost slide the wire into the matrix almost that the pine cone has, and you want to loop it once and then go back to about halfway, and that should let you tie it on in a straight line, so it shouldn't bend too much like it often wants to do. Again, I advise you to tie this onto your thickest bit of your wreath, because if it's narrow then it will bend, or it might not sit particularly nicely, so this can be quite a finicky job. So as you can see, I've actually gone for 3 pine cones and 1 cinnamon stick, because odd numbers work best in design, so I've been told. And prior to applying those, you want to also give some thought as to how you're going to hang your wreath, or where you're going to hang your wreath, whether you lay it or hang it, because you want to leave a small bit of area for the ribbon to potentially hold it, so for the doorstop or wherever you decide to place it. But also, you want to be giving, throughout the design, considerate thought as to how you're going to place things, to make sure you keep space for your ribbons or your bows or anything you're going to be doing later on, which Dan will be showing you.
Okay, so now that Brendan has added the embellishments to the wreath, we're now going to move on to making some bows. Now, there's many different ways of making bows, but I'm just going to show you a really simple way that's quite effective. So, take a section of ribbon, longer the better because it gives you more to play with, and you can also trim it down later. And then make 2 bunny ears. So around about halfway, make a single loop, and then make a second loop, like that. So you have 2 loops. Then just do a simple overhand knot and pull those through. Now don't worry at this stage if the bow looks messy, inevitably it will, but pull it reasonably tight so you've got a firm knot. Then you can start to dress your bow by folding out the ribbon so that it looks attractive, and then folding out the loops Now this ribbon has got a very small amount of wire in the edges, which means it's very good for sculpting your bow. You can also, if you want the loop smaller, you can start to pull the legs back through, and then you can get the right size of bow that you're looking for. And by flattening out the knot in the middle, you get a nice flat bow with the two good loops at the top. So there we have it, that's one of our bows. And then you can add this to the wreath however which way that you like. So if we just sort of put this one off centre, just tuck it in the laurel there. And if you're happy with that location, you can then go back to the floristry wire and tuck that through into the ribbon. Okay, so taking your floristry wire, if you tuck it through the back of your bow, like that, and then you can pull that either side and then wrap that around the back of your wreath. As with all the other elements that you've tied onto the wreath, make sure it's nice and tight. So, we've added the bow there, and then you can do your final dressing, pulling it tighter or looser as to how you like. And then we'll leave these long for now, because when it's hung up, you can do your final adjustments and trim these to however long you like. If you want to be really fancy with your bow making and be the envy of all of your neighbours, you can have an attempt at making a double coloured bow. On some of the ribbon that we have two colours already, so it's reversible. But if you've only got two different colours of ribbon, you can make a double coloured bow by cutting two lengths of similar size and overlaying them like that. And then the process of making the bow is exactly the same as before. You make two bunny ears, so we'll make one there, and then one there, like that, and then tie these together again in the same overhand knot and pull them through, making that nice and tight in the middle for now. And then again, dressing your bow in the way that you feel looks best. And you can have one colour that's dominant on one side or the same on the other, or you can have it symmetrical. In this case, you're going to open it up and show both loops just showing on each side, but in a symmetrical way. And then again, dressing your bow so that it looks quite attractive. And there you go, there's a double coloured bow. Okay, so now we're going to move on to how you actually hang your wreath from your door or wherever you wish to place it. So in this case I'm going to take this different coloured ribbon, which has got these snowflakes on. I'm going to cut a decent amount. Now bearing in mind how you've structured your wreath, this will depend on where this piece of ribbon goes. So this wreath kind of naturally hangs in this kind of fashion. So taking this bit of ribbon that we have, we're just going to literally place it through the wreath, and this is what's going to be used to hang it from the door. So at this stage you can simply do a knot, like that, and do a normal shoelace type style bow, if you so wish, like that. And then that is simply the method of hanging your wreath from wherever you wish to hang it. Okay, so now we've hung our wreath up just in a temporary position so we can get a good look at how the wreath will look on your front door. So in this, we're going to trim the ribbon now so that we get a nice length to it and that it looks right. Having a diagonal cut gives a nice finish to the ribbon, so that's that there. And then you can also see how this hang works at the top. And you can do any final foliage trimming now as well, giving that wreath a neat look if that's what you require, or perhaps you've gone for one that's a lot more bushy and a bit more of a wild effect. But there we are, I think we're happy with the wreath that we've made here. Don't forget there are lots of other embellishments that you can add, like the teasel, some extra ribbons. You can put as many ribbons on there as you would like. You could save little bits of holly with berries onto the end as well and place them in strategic places if you would like. Please though, we remind you not to take your own foliage from the common. Everything that we've cut here has been pre-selected from specific places. If you do require any extra materials, you should have enough for everything you need, but if there are occasions when you do need extra, please give us a shout at the email address that you should find on the screen now.
I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone for taking part. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it in person this year, but hopefully next year will be different.
We really look forward to seeing all of your creations. On screen now you should see the addresses of our social media outlets, so if you could please share your wreaths on there so that we can all see how well they've all turned out. We'd like to wish you a very Merry Christmas and thank you very much.
We'll see you on the Common.